Thanks for coming. I'm Balaji Rajakrishnan, Senior Solution Architect from Broadcom Software. As per agenda in this session, we'll be discussing how API Gateway is going to handle a revoked token condition using continuous access evaluation protocol, followed by a component architecture where this use case will be discussed in detail, and then the sequence flow. And finally, solution deployment demonstration of the solution for this use case. So in today's modern world, there are certain things I want to bring in context. One of them is OIDC provider, along with JSON Web Token. These two things are golden standard for today's app economy. With that context, most of my conversation and discussion is going to be around that. We all know that federated systems are the most common way of enforcing access control. Federated identity solutions like SAML and OpenID Connect enable identity providers to validate or verify the user access at the time of authentication or login. There are scenarios where after successful user authentication, tokens have been issued, and those tokens are being used by user agents like web application, mobile application, or IoT application to access the protected resources. The entire solution is depending on these access tokens. And there are two different scenarios. One of them is when these access tokens, the lifespan of these access tokens, where it is very short-lived and very specific to a particular resource request, is going to be a happy day scenario where gateway and other backend systems can be easily validating the solution, verifying the signature, audience, scope, any other claims, and then provide the authorization to the backend. The situation I'm going to talk about is where the lifespan of these access tokens going to be long-lived, meaning their expiration dates are going to be often days. And situation like this, where the backend application is going to continue validate the signature or expiry date and continue to authorize the flow is what the problem is. Because during the meantime of this long living lifespan, user would have been revoked or terminated, user credentials would have been changed, user location would have been changed, or device compliance might have changed, or assurance level would have changed. Without knowing any of these factors, these backend applications would continue to verify or validate the signature or expiry date and or audience or scope or any other claims locally without involving the issuer and authorize for the backend access. That's where the problem is. And that's the scenario which I'm going to talk about, and which would create an issue of unauthorized access provided by the application due to this token that has been already revoked. And the situation and the solution for this situation is going to be continuous access evaluation. And how we are applying, how gateway is going to be involved, is all those things is what we are going to see as part of the next slide. As you see, we have a centralized API gateway. We also have an enterprise-wide cache management. We have a OIDC provider. Again, this is a federated identity provider for enterprise. And we do have user agents on our left-hand side where we have IoT, web, and mobile applications. And we have a messaging system, and we have backend systems. The scenario where I'm talking about, oh, slides didn't change, sorry. Thanks. So as you guys see, we have a centralized API gateway. We also have an enterprise-wide cache management, and we have a OIDC provider and a messaging system here. As part of continuous access evaluation protocol, it's kind of a two-step process where we have a provider who needs to share the signal and the events via messaging protocol. And we also have a subscriber, the backend applications. In our case, we are going to have a centralized API gateway. So whenever the incoming request that comes in with that access token, all that we are going to do is validate that token either from a signature point of view, or if it is going to be very granular or specific, it's going to be audience or scope or any other claims that we need to. And once it is all valid, we are going to provide the authorization to access the backend system. While doing this, as I said, user would have got terminated, or user device would have been compromised, or claims would have been changed. But that information about that token is not being communicated back to our gateway. So gateway will continue to process the request, validate and authorize locally without involving without introspecting the token with the issuer. The situation to handle that, that's where we get into the continuous access evaluation protocol, where any event that occurs due to security breach or security issues that is pertaining to the user, and immediately OIDC provider is going to terminate or revoke the token, and it is going to submit that, publish that information in the form of a standard template along with the reason for the revocation, and that is going to be a signal sharing event. And once that has been published, gateway can subscribe to that event, or any other backend application can subscribe to that event. Let's say it's going to be a revoked token queue or topic. Once that information is received, gateway, in our case, going to be caching that information in a revoked token list or something kind of that. Once it has been cached, next time when a request comes in to the gateway, first thing it is going to see whether it is inside the revocation list. If it is, immediately it will fail and send the corresponding reason why it was failed. And if it is not in the revocation list, then it will do the local validation and authorize the request to the backend system. That's how the continuous evaluation protocol is going to help us to deal with this kind of a revoked token scenario using a centralized API gateway. In the next slide, I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail. And the first part of this is going to be user authentication. As I said, federated identity OIDC provider is going to use a single factor or multi-factor and authenticate the user or verify the authenticity of the user access and issue an IT token and access token back to the user agent. And the user agent will use that and will be directing the request for accessing the protected resources. And there are two scenarios. The primary scenario here, when there is a valid token, it is going to check the token whether it is in the revocation list in the caching system. If it is not there, then it will continue to validate the token for the expiry and other claims, and then it will authorize to the backend systems and get the response back. But suppose the token is in the revocation list, it will immediately fail the request and reject the request, and it will send the corresponding information back to the user who have been requesting. Now, once this has been done, I think the use case has been well explained, and you guys are able to understand the flow with the sequence that I have explained. Now I'm going to walk through this through the demonstration of the product. Is there something I need to share, or you guys are able to see that, right? Okay. So I'm going to sign into my portal. This is a passwordless authentication where I'm using my security key. Once it has been authenticated, I'm able to get into my portal. Now I'm going to get into my continuous access evaluation protocol tile. Inside the tile, as I said, there are four flows, four individual steps. One is user authentication. I'm going to go ahead and use the authentication now. In this case, Layer 7 API gateway is not only a centralized API gateway that processes the request, but it is also a relying party, because it is going to delegate the request to an external OIDC provider. In our case, it's going to be VIP Auth Hub. Once I log in, I'm using a biometric fingerprint for my authentication, again, passwordless. Now, after successful authentication, it consent management, where I'm granting access. At this point, the user agent is already having the access token, and I'm displaying the access token here for you, reference. And it's very valid at this point. I'm going to access the protected resources. As I said, Gateway is going to go through and verify and validate the signature, as well as audience and other claims for this particular resources, whether it is there or not. And the token has been issued, it's very valid, and now it is allowed me to access the backend system, and I was able to successfully access the API. At this point, as I said, due to some reason, whether the device got compromised or the claims got changed, the user location changed, or user got terminated, and provider revokes the token and also submits a shared signal event to a messaging, enterprise-wide messaging message broker, where it publishes this corresponding access token has been revoked, and the reason for the revocation is also mentioned. And here we can see that issued access token has been revoked because the password has been changed, the credential has been changed. At this point, this information, what happened with the provider, is not being communicated, or the user agent is not aware of that, while the gateway is already aware of it because of the continuous access evaluation protocol. It subscribed to that particular topic, and then it also received that standard template, the revoked token, as well as the reason for the revocation, and it cached in the revocation list. At this point, if I try to access the same protected resources, it is going to fail because the gateway is not even going to validate the token because it was found in the revocation list, and immediately it sends and it rejects the request and says that the token has been rejected, due to password change, and there is no other way you can access. The only way is, again, re-authenticate the user, and then only you'll be able to get a new token, and then only you'll be able to do that. That's the solution using API gateway for continuous access protocol for handling the revoked token condition. That's all. If there is any questions, let me know for the viewers virtually watching.